Have you ever experienced something so terrifying that it changed your life forever? Welcome to my story, a chilling night when I was just 12 years old, alone at home, and what I thought was a harmless evening turned into a nightmare. As I drifted off to sleep, I encountered something beyond explanation, a ghostly figure that left me paralyzed with fear. What would you do if you woke up, unable to move, and saw a mysterious specter in your own home? Imagine the fear and helplessness as you realize this isn't just a dream. In this video, I'll take you through every spine-chilling detail of that fateful night and the lingering questions that haunt me to this day. Stick around to uncover the full story and find out what really happened when the unknown entered my life. Are you ready to face the fear with me? Let's dive in. My name is Alex, and this is the story of the night that changed my life forever. I was only 12 years old, just starting to understand the world around me. It was a typical weekend, and my family had decided to visit another house they owned in a nearby town. I was given the choice to go with them or stay home. I chose to stay behind with my two loyal dogs, Max and Bella. My parents were always comfortable leaving me alone for short periods because I was responsible and mature for my age. Plus, having Max and Bella around made me feel safe. Our house was situated in a quiet neighborhood, where everyone knew each other. It felt like the perfect place for a peaceful weekend. Saturday started just like any other. I woke up late, enjoyed a lazy breakfast, and played with Max and Bella in the backyard. The day was warm and sunny, the kind of day that made everything feel right in the world. As the afternoon rolled in, I decided to watch some horror videos online. I had always been fascinated by the supernatural and the unknown, and horror stories never really scared me. I spent hours engrossed in terrifying tales and creepy videos. The thrill of the unknown and the adrenaline rush kept me hooked. Despite the eerie content, I felt no fear. Instead, I found them entertaining and often laughed at how unrealistic they seemed. Fear was not something I was accustomed to. By early evening, I needed a break from the screen. I decided to take Max and Bella for a walk around the neighborhood. It was a routine we all enjoyed. The fresh air, the quiet streets, and the companionship of my dogs made these walks special. We strolled through the familiar paths, the dogs happily sniffing around and wagging their tails. As we returned home, I felt an unusual sense of exhaustion. It was strange because these walks never tired me out. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the effect of spending too much time watching videos. I decided to rest for a bit before dinner. Max and Bella curled up next to me on the couch, their presence comforting as always. I lay there, trying to relax, but the exhaustion was overwhelming. Within minutes, I drifted off into a deep sleep. It was an odd sensation because I rarely napped during the day. The house was quiet, the only sounds being the occasional rustle of leaves outside and the soft breathing of my dogs. Suddenly, I woke up, but something was terribly wrong. I couldn't move. My eyes were open, and I could see the familiar surroundings of my living room, but my body was paralyzed. Panic began to set in. I had heard of sleep paralysis before, but experiencing it firsthand was terrifying. I tried to call out to Max and Bella, but no sound came from my lips. The room felt different, colder somehow. I strained my eyes to see my dogs, but they were nowhere in sight. Fear gripped me as I realized I was truly alone. The house, which had always been my sanctuary, now felt foreign and hostile. My heart pounded in my chest, and I struggled to understand what was happening. Then I saw it. A figure, white and spectral, at the top of the stairs. It moved slowly, almost gliding. My mind raced with questions. Who or what was this? Why was it in my house? The figure turned, and I felt its gaze upon me. A chill ran down my spine, and for the first time in my life, I felt genuine, paralyzing fear. It was a typical Saturday evening, and after watching horror videos all afternoon, I decided it was time to take Max and Bella for their evening walk. We had a usual route around the neighborhood, and the dogs were always excited to go out. I grabbed their leashes, and we headed out into the cool evening air. We walked our usual path, passing by familiar houses and greeting a few neighbors along the way. The dogs sniffed around, wagging their tails happily. It was peaceful, and I enjoyed the quiet time to think and relax. Everything felt normal, just like any other evening. When we got back home, though, I felt an unusual wave of exhaustion hit me. It was strange because our walks never tired me out like this. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was from watching so many scary videos earlier. Max and Bella settled down in their spots, looking at me as if they knew something was off. I decided to lie down on the couch and rest for a bit. The moment I closed my eyes, it felt like a heavy weight was pressing down on me. I drifted off almost instantly, which was odd because I usually have trouble napping during the day. The house was quiet, and the soft sounds of Max and Bella breathing next to me were comforting. Suddenly, I woke up, but something was very wrong. I couldn't move a muscle. My eyes were open, and I could see the room around me, but my body was completely frozen. Panic started to set in. I had heard about sleep paralysis before, but experiencing it was terrifying. I tried to call out to my dogs, but no sound came out. The room felt different, colder somehow, and there was an eerie silence. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. My eyes darted around the room, searching for anything out of the ordinary. Then I saw it. At the top of the stairs, there was a figure. It was pale and ghostly, almost like it was glowing. My heart started pounding as the figure began to move down the stairs, slowly and deliberately. It looked like a person, but something was off. Its eyes were empty and lifeless. As it got closer, the air grew colder. I felt a chill run down my spine, and the sense of dread was unbearable. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was still frozen. The figure stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned to look directly at me. Our eyes met, and I felt a wave of pure terror. I knew I had to move, to break free from this paralysis. I focused all my energy on trying to move my fingers. Slowly, I managed to wiggle them, and then my hand. The figure seemed to notice my struggle and started moving towards me. Desperation took over, and I finally managed to sit up, gasping for breath. The figure was gone, and the room was silent again. I looked around, but everything seemed normal. Max and Bella were still lying down, completely unaware of what had just happened. I tried to calm myself, telling myself it was just a nightmare. But deep down, I knew that what I had experienced was real. When I woke up, I felt a strange sensation. My eyes were open, but I couldn't move. It was like my whole body was frozen. I tried to wiggle my fingers, but nothing happened. Panic started to creep in. I had never experienced anything like this before. The room felt different. It was darker and colder than usual. I strained to listen for any sound, but the house was eerily quiet. I couldn't hear Max and Bella anywhere. Usually they would be right next to me, but now there was just silence. My heart began to race. I tried to call out for my dogs, but no sound came out. It was as if my voice was trapped inside me. I kept telling myself it was just a bad dream, but everything felt so real. The air felt heavy, and there was a sense of something wrong in the house. As I lay there, unable to move, I noticed a shadow at the top of the stairs. My heart skipped a beat. I blinked, hoping it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, but the shadow didn't go away. It started to take shape, becoming more defined. The figure was white and ghostly. It seemed to glow softly in the darkness. I felt a chill run down my spine as it began to move down the stairs. Each step it took made the air around me grow colder. My fear intensified with every second. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The figure looked like a person, but it was unlike anyone I had ever seen. Its eyes were hollow, and its movements were slow and deliberate. It was coming towards me, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. As it got closer, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. It was like the air was being sucked out of the room. The figure stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned to face me. Our eyes met, and I felt a wave of pure terror wash over me. The figure started to move again, this time heading straight for my room. I tried to scream, to move, to do anything, but I was still paralyzed. The closer it got, the more I felt like I was suffocating. It was hard to breathe, and my heart was pounding in my chest. It reached the doorway of my room and paused for a moment. I could see it clearly now, a ghostly figure with an empty, soulless gaze. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. I felt completely helpless. Then, as if sensing my fear, the figure began to move again, entering my room. The coldness intensified, and I felt weaker with each passing second. It was right there in my room, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. The terror was overwhelming, and I didn't know how much more I could take. As the ghostly figure moved up the stairs, my fear and confusion grew stronger. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst out of my chest. I kept telling myself it was just a dream, but it felt too real. The figure's movements were slow and deliberate, making the terror stretch out with every step it took. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just lie there and let whatever was happening continue. I focused all my energy on trying to move. First, I managed to wiggle my fingers a little. Then, I could move my hand. It felt like my body was waking up from a deep freeze, but it was painfully slow. With every ounce of strength, I forced myself to sit up. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but I swung them over the edge of the couch. I knew I had to get away from that thing. My mind was racing, trying to figure out where to go. Then, I thought of the bathroom. It was just down the hall, and there was a lock on the door. I stumbled towards the bathroom, my legs shaky and my vision blurry from panic. The figure was still coming up the stairs, getting closer with each step. I could feel its cold presence behind me, pushing me to move faster. My breathing was ragged, and I felt like I was running out of time. I reached the bathroom and slammed the door shut behind me. My hands were trembling so much that it took a few tries to get the lock to click. I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath. The bathroom felt like a tiny sanctuary, but I knew it wouldn't keep me safe for long. Then, I remembered the hammer my dad kept under the sink. He had put it there in case we ever needed to fix something quickly. I dropped to my knees and fumbled around, finally grabbing the hammer with both hands. It felt heavy and cold, but it gave me a small sense of security. I stood up, clutching the hammer, and backed away from the door. The bathroom was small, and there wasn't much space to move. I could hear the figure outside, its movements slow but steady. The doorknob began to turn, and my heart leapt into my throat. I tightened my grip on the hammer, ready to defend myself. The door creaked open, and the figure stepped into the bathroom. It was even more terrifying up close. Its pale, empty eyes seemed to look right through me. The coldness in the room intensified, and I felt weaker with each passing second. I raised the hammer, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Just as the figure took another step towards me, everything went black. It was like a wave of darkness washed over me, and I couldn't fight it. I felt myself falling, the hammer slipping from my grasp. The last thing I remember was the cold touch of the bathroom floor as I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was lying on my bed. My family was there, looking down at me with worry etched on their faces. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and my head was pounding. They told me they had found me in the bathroom, unconscious, with the door wide open. I had no idea how I got there or what had happened after I passed out. All I knew was that the terror I felt that night was real, and it would haunt me forever. When my family returned home, they found the front door wide open. My mom was the first to step inside, calling out my name, but there was no answer. She immediately felt something was wrong. The house was unusually quiet, and there was a chill in the air that sent shivers down her spine. As she walked through the hallway, she noticed things were out of place. The living room looked messy, like someone had been searching for something. Max and Bella were huddled together in a corner, whimpering softly. They usually ran to greet my parents, but this time they stayed put, clearly frightened. My mom's heart raced as she made her way to the bathroom. When she saw the door slightly ajar, she pushed it open and gasped. There I was, lying on the cold tile floor, pale and unresponsive. The hammer I had grabbed was lying next to me. She dropped to her knees beside me, calling my name and shaking me gently, but I didn't respond. My dad rushed in after hearing my mom's frantic calls. He immediately called 911 while my mom tried to comfort Max and Bella, who were now by my side, clearly distressed. My sister stood in the hallway, tears streaming down her face, too scared to move. The paramedics arrived quickly. They checked my vital signs and found that, physically, I seemed fine. But I was in a deep, unresponsive state, almost like I was in a trance. They loaded me onto a stretcher and rushed me to the hospital, with my family following close behind. At the hospital, the doctors ran a series of tests. They checked for head injuries, infections, anything that could explain my condition. But everything came back normal. There were no signs of trauma or any medical condition that could explain why I was unresponsive. My mom watched helplessly as the doctors worked, feeling a mixture of fear and frustration. Hours passed, and there was still no change. My family stayed by my side, hoping for any sign that I would wake up. My mom kept replaying the events in her mind, trying to piece together what could have happened. She couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural was involved. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I started to stir. My eyes fluttered open, and I slowly became aware of my surroundings. The first thing I saw was my mom's worried face. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and my voice was barely a whisper. The first words I managed to get out were, "Oh, where's the white figure?" My parents exchanged confused looks. They asked me what I was talking about, and I tried to explain what had happened, but it all sounded so unbelievable. They told me how they had found me and about the strange state I was in. It took a while for them to fully grasp the fear and confusion I felt. The doctors eventually discharged me, unable to find any physical reason for my condition. My mom kept a close watch on me for the next few days, never leaving my side. The experience left a mark on our entire family. The house, once a place of safety and comfort, now felt different. The memory of that night haunted me, and I knew it was something I would never forget. When I finally started to wake up, everything felt hazy. My eyes opened slowly, and the first thing I saw was my mom's worried face hovering over me. My mouth was dry, and my head felt heavy, but I managed to whisper, "Oh, where's the white figure?" My mom's eyes widened in confusion, and she glanced at my dad, who was standing nearby. What white figure?" she asked, her voice shaky. I tried to sit up, but my body still felt weak. I looked around the hospital room, trying to gather my thoughts. The last thing I remembered was the ghostly figure entering the bathroom, and then everything went black. As I recounted the events of that night, my family listened in stunned silence. I told them about the paralyzing fear, the figure coming down the stairs, and how I had locked myself in the bathroom. I described grabbing the hammer and the moment the figure opened the door. My parents exchanged worried looks, clearly trying to make sense of my story. It felt so real, I insisted, my voice trembling. It wasn't just a dream. I know what I saw. My mom reached out and held my hand, her eyes filled with concern. My dad rubbed his forehead, clearly troubled by what he was hearing. My sister sat quietly, her eyes wide with fear. For the next few days, my family tried to reassure me that it was just a nightmare, a product of my imagination. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The fear I felt was too intense, too real to be just a figment of my mind. Max and Bella had been acting strange since that night, sticking close to me and barking at shadows. It was like they sensed something I couldn't see. I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was still out there, watching me. Every creak in the house, every flicker of a shadow, sent chills down my spine. I found it hard to sleep, fearing that I might wake up paralyzed again, with that figure standing over me. My family did their best to comfort me, but the fear lingered. As time passed, I tried to move on, but the memory of that night haunted me. I often found myself wondering about the figure. Who or what was it? Why did it come to my house? And why did it leave me in such a strange state? The questions swirled in my mind, and I couldn't find any answers. The most unsettling part was that Max and Bella had gone missing for a while during that night. They were always by my side, but I hadn't seen or heard them when the figure appeared. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Thankfully, they returned the next morning, but their absence added another layer of mystery to the whole ordeal. Every now and then, I would bring up the topic with my family, hoping to find some new clue or explanation. But each time, we ended up with more questions than answers. The figure, the paralysis, the missing dogs, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit together. Even now, years later, I still think about that night. The fear hasn't completely gone away. I've learned to live with it, but the memory remains vivid. I've come to accept that some things might never be explained. The figure, whatever it was, left an indelible mark on my life, a reminder that there are things out there that we can't always understand. In the end, all I can do is hope that the figure never returns. The questions and the fear might never go away, but I found strength in knowing that I faced something unimaginable and survived. And maybe, just maybe, that experience has made me stronger in ways I still don't fully understand.